All right, so today we're diving deep, really deep into the work of a director who gave us some of the most intense, most gripping films in cinema history, Wolfgang Petersen. And for me, one film just instantly comes to mind when I hear his name. Das Boot.
Oh, Das Boot, yeah. A film that really, really changed how we see war movies.
It's a masterpiece, no doubt. But the thing that I find so fascinating is how Petersen, he started out in German television. So how did he end up creating like one of the most acclaimed war films ever?
I think to understand Das Boot, you got to look back at Petersen's early TV work. He learned to create tension, real tension, but on a TV screen. And all of that, it translated perfectly to the submarine, that cramped world.
Okay, so let's break this down a little. Petersen, born in 1941 in Emden, Germany, right in the middle of World War II. So that might explain his later interest in war. He loved movies, loved cinema early on, and studied at the Film and Television Academy in Berlin.
That's where his technical skills, that's where it all started. Think about it. Directing for TV back in the 60s and 70s, tiny budgets, very few resources. You had to get creative, resourceful to grab the audience's attention.
So like a filmmaking boot camp.
Exactly. And those limitations, they became strengths for Petersen. He learned to create tension and drama with the camera, subtle movements, clever editing, and most importantly, he got how people think, human psychology.
And that brings us to Das Boot, right?
Right, Das Boot. It's based on Gunther Buchheim's novel, and it follows, a German U-boat crew in World War II. Petersen, he took all those TV skills and just amplified them. The submarine, it's like a mini war zone, a pressure cooker, and Petersen's direction, it just captures it brilliantly.
You know what always gets me about Das Boot is how real it feels. It's like you're right there in that cramped sub with him.
That's Petersen. He was all about authenticity. He built a replica submarine for the film, working controls, the whole thing. Super tight spaces, so realistic, some of the actors even had claustrophobia while filming.
Wow, talk about method acting, right? But that kind of detail, that had to be a nightmare for production.
Oh, it was a huge, massive project, but it worked. You see that realism, you feel it in every scene. The sweat, the stale air, the tension. It's an experience. It's immersive, unlike anything else in war films at that time.
And it's not just what you see, right?
Yeah.
The sound in that film, it's incredible. It puts you right in the middle of the action.
The sound, it's so important. The creaking metal, the ping of the sonar, those distant muffled explosions, it all builds this visceral feeling, like something's not right. And again, that's Petersen's TV background showing. He knew how to use sound to hit you right in the feels.
So he takes his TV skills, his attention to detail, that incredible way of building tension, and he pours it all into Das Boot.
Exactly. And what you get is a film that changed how war films were made. It wasn't just about the big battles and the speeches. It was about what war does to you, the fear, the camaraderie, what it's like to be trapped in a metal tube under the waves, just exhausted.
And the world loved it. 6 Academy Award nominations, including Best Director and Best Adapted Screenplay. Not bad for, his first international film.
No, not bad at all. And that really cemented his reputation as a master of suspense, someone who could handle those big stories, driven by characters, but with amazing technical skill.
Okay, this might be a bit of a jump, but I'm curious. Did the fact that Das Boot was told from the German perspective, World War II and all, did that affect how people saw it?
Ooh, that's a good question. And back then, it was definitely on people's minds. But what makes Das Boot so special is that it goes beyond borders, beyond countries. It's not about glorifying war or picking sides.
So it's more about like the human experience of war, no matter what side you're on.
Exactly. It's about the fear, the camaraderie, the moral choices, the things people face in a conflict so much bigger than themselves. And that anyone, anywhere can relate to that.
So you're saying Das Boot is almost anti-war in its message, even though it's set in a war.
I think that's a really good way to put it. By focusing on the crew, their struggles, their fears, their little moments of humanity, Petersen makes you confront the cost of war, what it does to people. He doesn't hide the brutality, but he also shows the compassion, the friendships, the little kindnesses that still exist in the darkest times.
And that's why even now, decades later, Das Boot still feels relevant. It goes deeper than just, World War II history.
Absolutely. It reminds us of the human spirit, how resilient it is, how complex war is, and how important empathy is, even for those we might consider, the enemy.
Okay, so Das Boot was a huge hit with critics at the box office. It launched Petersen's international career. But what I'm wondering is, how did he go from German cinema to Hollywood?
That's where it gets interesting. Because Petersen didn't just dip his toe in Hollywood, he'd jump right in with a completely different kind of film. His first English-language film was The Never-Ending Story.
Wait, The Never-Ending Story, that classic kids film with the flying look dragon?
The one and only. It might seem strange after the intensity of Das Boot, but it actually tells us a lot about Petersen, how versatile he was as a director.
Tell me more. I'm all ears.
The Never-Ending Story was like a whole different world from Das Boot, but it let Petersen show what he could do, creating these amazing visuals,
Yeah.
and connecting with a younger audience.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, that movie totally captivated me. Those special effects, the characters, that story, it all felt so magical.
And that's what Petersen wanted, to make a film, that grabs your imagination, takes you to a place of pure fantasy.
It's amazing how he went from the darkness and intensity of Das Boot to like the whimsy and wonder of The Never-Ending Story. It shows his range as a storyteller.
Yeah, his films always have a strong visual impact, but there's this emotional depth, too, that really connects with people, whatever their age.
So The Never-Ending Story was a success, for sure, but it wasn't like his big Hollywood breakthrough.
Right. That came a few years later in 1993, In the Line of Fire. A thriller, political thriller, starring Clint Eastwood as a Secret Service agent, haunted by, not being able to protect President Kennedy.
In the Line of Fire. That's where Petersen really became like the master of suspense.
Totally. The whole movie, it keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time. Eastwood's character, he's racing to stop someone from killing the president.
What I find so interesting about that film is how Petersen mixes the action, the suspense, but also this psychological depth. Eastwood's character, he's fighting with his past, his guilt. He wants to redeem himself.
Yeah, and John Malkovich, he's so chilling as the bad guy, the smart, ruthless assassin who's playing mind games with Eastwood.
It's that battle of wits, that tension that really lifts In the Line of Fire above, just a typical action movie.
Petersen, he gets at the best conflicts. They're internal. He gets inside his characters' heads, their motivations, their fears.
And he does all that while still giving us those heart-stopping action scenes that, audiences love. Thrills and chills all mixed together.
In the Line of Fire was huge. Critics loved it. Audiences loved it. It solidified Petersen's place, a top Hollywood director. He showed he could handle big budgets, big stars, complex stories.
And he didn't stop there. 2 years later, he came out with Outbreak, a medical thriller, about deadly viruses, really tapping into those real-world fears.
Talk about a film that became really relevant later on, right? It's almost like Petersen could see the future, predicting those anxieties we'd all have years later.
Yeah, it stars Dustin Hoffman, Rene Russo, and Morgan Freeman as scientists, racing against time to stop this virus that's spreading like wildfire across the U.S.
Petersen, once again, he's the master of suspense. That sense of urgency, of dread, you feel it in every scene.
What I find really striking about Outbreak, it's how it looks at the ethical side of these health crises. Like, what do you do about quarantine? Government control? How do you balance individual freedom and what's good for everyone?
It shows you how Petersen can make films that are both entertaining but make you think. He doesn't shy away from the tough stuff. He makes the audience really grapple with the issues.
And he does it all with those signature action sequences, those moments of intense suspense. It's a film that keeps you on the edge of your seat, but also gets your brain working.
Outbreak was another box office hit, showing that In the Line of Fire wasn't a fluke. Petersen, he could deliver the thrills, but also the substance.
And he kept pushing those boundaries with his next film, Air Force One. Harrison Ford as the president fighting terrorists who've hijacked his plane.
Talk about high stakes. Petersen, he puts us right inside that iconic plane, and it creates this claustrophobic feel, this tension that's almost like Das Boot.
Yeah, that film, it's nonstop adrenaline. Ford is amazing, a president who's not afraid to get his hands dirty.
And Gary Oldman, he's fantastic as the villain, this completely ruthless terrorist, determined to take down the president.
I remember that scene, where Ford's character is hanging off the back of the plane. Pure edge-of-your-seat action.
Petersen, he knows how to create those spectacle moments, the ones that leave you breathless. But he also knows you got to ground the action in character, in emotion.
You really feel for Ford's character, as he's fighting for his family, his country. It taps into that primal fear we all have about terrorism, about leadership.
And it does it with such skill, such precision. Classic Petersen.
Air Force One was another smash hit. It proved, once again, that Petersen could make these huge blockbuster films, but not sacrifice quality or intelligence.
Yeah, he'd become the king of the action thriller, and he wasn't stopping there.
But his next project, this one would take it in a totally different direction. Ancient Greece, the Trojan War, epic battles.
Troy, 2004,
Yeah.
his most ambitious film yet. This huge, sprawling epic based on Homer's Iliad, starring Brad Pitt, Eric Bana, and Orlando Bloom.
That movie was a visual feast. Incredible sets, costumes, special effects. It was like the ancient world came to life.
Peterson's attention to detail, you see it everywhere. He wanted to create a world that felt real, believable, even though it was mythology.
And he did it. Those battle scenes, they're truly epic. Thousands of extras, crazy stunts, a sense of scale you rarely see in films.
But Troy is more than just spectacle. It's about love, betrayal, revenge, and the human cost of war. You know, like Das Boot.
Yeah, it explores those complicated relationships. The love triangle, Paris, Helen, Menelaus, the rivalry, Achilles and Hector.
Peterson, he manages to balance that huge scale with the intimate moments between the characters. Even in these epic battles, it's the human drama that really grabs you.
Troy did really well at the box office. Critics, though, they were kind of mixed on it. Some loved the visuals and the ambition, but others felt it wasn't as emotionally deep as his other films.
I think, Troy, it's a flawed masterpiece. Visually amazing, but the story, it's a little uneven.
But it shows Petersen was always willing to take risks, to push the limits of filmmaking.
He wasn't afraid to tackle a story as big and complex as the Trojan War, and he did it with a visual style that very few directors could pull off.
And even if Troy isn't his best film, it's still a major accomplishment in his career.
Yeah, it shows he was always growing as a filmmaker, always looking for new challenges, new ways to tell stories.
And that's what makes Wolfgang Petersen so fascinating. He mastered so many genres, a visual storyteller, top of his game, a director who wasn't afraid to be ambitious.
His films, they've entertained, inspired millions of people all over the world. His legacy, it'll keep influencing filmmakers for years to come.
So we've talked a lot about Wolfgang Petersen's career, his early stuff in German television, those huge hits in Hollywood. And we've seen how he, mastered suspense, action, visual storytelling. But what happened after Troy? Did he keep going with those epics, or did he change things up again?
After that massive Troy project, he went back to something familiar, disaster films. Poseidon, a remake of that classic, The Poseidon Adventure from 1972.
Oh yeah, Poseidon. The one where like this giant wave flips over a cruise ship and those who are left have to find their way out.
Exactly. It was, in a way, going back to those themes of survival, human resilience, like in Das Boot, but this time much bigger, more visual spectacle.
Yeah, I remember the special effects were really impressive. But did it, have the same impact as that original film?
That's a question a lot of people debated. Film critics, audiences. Poseidon had the visuals, the action for sure, but some felt it was missing something. That emotional depth, the characters compared to the original.
So, like, visually amazing, but maybe the story wasn't as strong.
Yeah, you could say that. Poseidon did well, box office, but the critics weren't as impressed as with Petersen's other films. It makes you wonder why. Maybe audiences, after seeing what Petersen could do with suspense, like in Das Boot or in The Line of Fire, they expected more from him, more character-driven stories.
It's like he set the bar so high, it was tough to reach that level again.
Maybe, and that happens a lot. Directors who have a lot of success, they face that challenge. But even if Poseidon didn't become a classic like his other films, it still showed off his technical skills. Those amazing disaster sequences.
And it's interesting how he went back to those themes. Survival, resilience, like he did so well in Das Boot.
Almost like those themes were part of him, part of his filmmaking. Whatever the genre, the setting, how big the film was, Petersen seemed drawn to stories about the human spirit, how we endure, how we overcome.
And that's why his films are so captivating, right? We connect with those characters, we feel their fear, their determination, and in the end, we're left with a sense of hope, even when everything seems impossible.
Exactly. Petersen's films, they're about what it means to be human, and that's something that goes beyond, time, language, culture.
Poseidon ended up being his last Hollywood film. He did go back to Germany, though. In 2016, made Wir gegen die Bank, Four Against the Bank, a heist comedy. Pretty different from those big productions he was known for.
It is, isn't it? He could have just kept making those big Hollywood films, but he went back to Germany, made this smaller, more character-focused comedy. It shows he wanted to try different things, keep challenging himself, even later in his career.
Like he was saying, okay, I've done Hollywood, now what else can I do?
And that's what makes Wolfgang Petersen so special. He took risks, stepped outside his comfort zone, experimented with different ways of telling stories. TV, German cinema, Hollywood blockbusters, then back to his roots with a comedy.
He was so versatile as a director, passionate about filmmaking, always looking to grow.
Absolutely. And I think what he leaves behind, his legacy, is one of innovation, creativity, and a real respect for filmmaking.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Wolfgang Petersen, what would you say is the one thing we should remember? His lasting impact on film.
That's a good one. I think Wolfgang Petersen, what he gave us was the ability to really experience films, to be immersed in them, the tension of that submarine, the high-stakes world of politics, those epic battles in ancient Greece. He took audiences to all these different places with incredible detail, authenticity, and he made us feel something. He understood how to tell stories visually, the importance of sound, and that magic of connecting with people on a human level.
He was a master, a true visionary. He left a real mark on film. And his films, I think it's safe to say, they'll keep entertaining and inspiring people for years to come.
I agree. And for all our listeners, if you haven't seen his films, you should. You'll discover a whole world of cinematic brilliance from the bottom of the ocean to the top of Mount Olympus.
And that's a wrap on our Wolfgang Petersen deep dive. Thanks for joining us. It's been an amazing journey exploring the work of this incredible director. Until next time, keep watching, keep discovering, and remember, a great story can change everything.